first of all, shares up 100% since March. Obviously, Cloudflare has been a critical company, part of our critical infrastructure to keep everyone online as we've all been working from home and sheltering from place. Talk to us about what demand and traffic has been like in the pandemic.
We obviously the superheroes of this crisis are going to be the medical professionals and scientists that are taking care of the sick and helping look for a cure. But we feel really proud that we are one of the guardians of the internet, and the internet has been one of the faithful guardians that has allowed us to continue to get through this. And so we've seen around the world as much as a 50% increase in overall internet utilization. And our team is hard at work making sure that we are able to keep normal traffic under control. But we've also seen a just dramatic spike in cyber attacks over the same period of time. And so we're ensuring that all of our customers and clients stay online no matter what.
Do you think this boost is temporary because we are sheltering in place, and what happens in the new normal when people start to go back to work and school, albeit slowly?
Well, I think that the first systemic change is going to be that now that the world has learned more how to work remotely, that I think that's something that employees are going to demand across companies, and it's going to accelerate a lot of companies' digital transformation. So I think us relying on the internet to get work done across the globe is something that is likely here to stay. We have seen a plateauing in the overall normal internet usage. I think the cyber attacks are two different trends, one of which is less concerning than the other. We always see an uptick in cyber attacks as school lets out, and so we saw a bunch of what were largely bored kids launching relatively unsophisticated attacks. But we have, over the course of the last month, seen an increase in much more sophisticated attacks that appear to be coming from nation-state actors, sometimes targeting health infrastructure, sometimes targeting election infrastructure, and that has us more concerned. And unfortunately, I think that those sorts of actors are taking advantage of any crisis that they can see, and that's why having a system like Cloudflare in place is so incredibly important for anyone that is providing a critical service like healthcare or elections.
Earlier this week, Mark Zuckerberg announced a big voter information campaign that they're launching to register new voters, as well as, the latest efforts that they've been making to safeguard the integrity of the platform and protect it from interference in the election. All of that said, how concerned are you about interference in the 2020 presidential election, just based on the number of attacks that you're seeing on a regular basis?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that we risk turning U.S. elections into the World Cup of cyber attacks after the rest of the world saw how vulnerable parts of our election infrastructure were in 2016. And so that's something that we are very much in touch with, and we have been working since 2016 with what we call the Athenian Project to help any state, local, or federal officials that are conducting elections. And one of the things that I'm proud of is we actually worked with the Federal Election Commission in order to be able to not just protect the election infrastructure, but actually be able to protect any campaign as well. And we provide all of these services at no cost because there's no way we could have built Cloudflare without a stable and functioning political system. And I think it's our duty as a technology company to be giving back and helping ensure that we can protect that political system and make sure that it continues to work going forward.
Meantime, you've also seen a large uptick in cyber attacks, particularly on advocacy organizations focused on anti-racism. What are you seeing in terms of the traffic and the severity of these attacks, and what are you doing to help mitigate it?
Unfortunately, the internet used to be a place where anyone could use the platform to get out important messages, and advocacy organizations really flourished in the time of the internet. what's unfortunately happened is, as there are people who want to silence those organizations, they're using cyber attacks, things like denial of service attacks, to knock them offline. And so disturbingly, as we all saw, incredibly horrific images of violence against Black communities on television. Online, we were seeing massive attacks against various organizations that were fighting for equality, that were fighting for human rights. And we saw over 1,000 times increase in the number of cyber attacks that those organizations were facing. And so we have, for several years now, over 6 years, provided something called Project Galileo, which provides their services for free to either politically or artistically important organizations. And we've been onboarding several of these human rights organizations over the course of the last several weeks, and stand ready to throw our full weight in services to make sure that they can stay online and get their important messages out.
Meantime, Cloudflare has faced some controversies of its own. Even as you work to protect some of these vulnerable organizations, you've been criticized for servicing hateful organizations, which, believe it or not, they have websites of their own. And I know that this is something that you have personally struggled with in wanting to be a neutral provider of services for people who use the internet. And I'm curious if any of the recent events have changed how you're thinking about this and your reflections on what your business practices should be going forward.
I think that we have a duty to make sure that we protect the people who are fighting for civil liberties and civil rights online. But I think that it's and we've been very careful as we do that to recognize that we are computer scientists, not political scientists, and so we actually work with multiple different civil society organizations to identify who the good guys are, because we don't trust ourselves to be the ones that say, this content is politically or artistically important. I think the same risk comes when someone who's a deep infrastructure company like Cloudflare is making determinations on who the bad guys are online as well. And so while there are plenty of things that use our services, we see now nearly 13% of all of the web passing through our network, and so there's amazing things that use us, but there's also things that I would rather not use us. I think it's very dangerous for infrastructure companies that are hidden and invisible behind the scenes to be quietly making parts of the internet disappear. Again, I think before cyber attacks took off like they did, the internet was a place where anyone could put an idea up online, and that was how the internet worked. Now that cyber attacks are there, by pulling away a service like Cloudflare, what you're effectively saying is that bullies and criminals that launch those attacks should be able to silence one side of a debate or another, and that's something that we think is not the right place for us to be making determinations.